Theology by the Book live. Just a few minutes late. I need a new laptop. Thank you, Wes, for joining us and me. And so I send out a link to everybody in the church. So if anybody wants to join this live, you can. You can join live and you can do it without being on camera with microphone only. You can be on camera without microphone, or you can come on and just watch live and comment. If you watch on YouTube or Facebook, there's a few seconds delay that can cause some little strange things to happen. But here we are. Thank you. I always try to get at least one person to come on with me, and you're the one person. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I see my camera glitching. So what I'm going to do is see if it doesn't just work itself out. So we're in chapter 2, dangers. Um, it says dangers of young men. Does yours say dangers of young men?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not that there are young men who are dangerous, although that's the case too, but these are dangers for young men to watch out for. So I'm going to try to fix my camera. And would you like to read like the first couple little paragraphs right there, and I'll see what I can do here.
Yep.
All right, thank
All right. Number one danger to young men is pride. I know well that all souls are in fearful peril. Old or young, it doesn't matter. All have a race to run, a battle to fight, a heart to humble, a world to overcome, a body to keep under control, a devil to resist, and we may very well say, who is sufficient for these things? But still, every age and condition has its own peculiar snares and temptations, and it is well to know them. He that is forewarned is forearmed. If I can only persuade you to be on your guard against the dangers I am going to name, I am sure I shall do your souls an essential service. Pride is the oldest sin in the world. Indeed, it was before the world. Satan and his angels fell by pride. They were not satisfied with their first situation and status. Thus, pride stocked hell with its first inhabitants.
you. All right, I'm off mute. I'm just using a different camera. So you read it? First thoughts? Or would you
He
like
that
for me?
is he is that is, he that is forewarned is forearmed.
Have you heard that before?
I have not.
Oh yeah, I don't know whether. I mean, I had somebody used to say that a lot. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So I was surprised how long that. I wonder if he came up with it. But yeah, that's a. So what do you think of that? It's a good.
Well, yeah, I think it is good. But I also think it's good how he ties in all ages to this part.
Hmm.
You
Hey,
know,
old or young,
yeah. I
all have
mean,
a race to run, a battle to fight, a
yeah.
heart to humble, and that's the part that he's focusing on right here. Is we all have a heart to humble. I found that to be interesting too. Go ahead, just
Yeah.
any.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, obviously, I haven't, I'm 37, but from 20 to 37, there's been some humbling going on. Some, obviously, I still deal with pride to an extent. I think there's a part of us that, we want our voice to be heard. We want to be right. And me personally, as I've gotten older, you do come to the realization that you're definitely not always right. And you need to shut up and listen, um, which is godly wisdom. And unfortunately, we don't learn that, a lot of us at a young age, and we have to be humbled into it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I mean, the world sort of teaches you to celebrate yourself and your accomplishments. So it's
right. Yeah,
difficult to. I mean, you watch professional sports. It's like there's not a whole lot of humbling that's taking place, especially when you're paying young college. Imagine being in college and making millions of dollars, running out on a stage to tens of thousands of people cheering you, and the pressure has to be terrible too.
yeah,
So, who is sufficient for these things? That's what he puts here, and that's from the Bible. Who is sufficient to these things? Um, So in the next, if I can jump in here, the next one, it's because he does say it's the oldest sin in the world. It says, be careful about laying hands on men too quickly in the church to be elders, lest they fall, they're new converts and they can fall into the sin of pride, which was the sin of the devil. And so it seems to give a hint, a clue as to what happened. How does Satan, as a glorious angel, fall? And the root of it was pride, which also makes sense. I was just watching a video my grandson showed me of Adam and Eve being tempted by the serpent, and it was really pride. God's holding you back, and I think that's what a lot of young people, older people, you think people are holding you back, and I need to go forward. All right, pride threw Adam out of paradise. He was not content with the place God assigned him. He tried to raise himself and fell. Thus, sin, sorrow, and death entered in by pride. I have an issue. See, Ryle. Usually, so if I disagree with him, it means I'm wrong. That's just my approach. But I think it's Eve. Eve was deceived. It doesn't say that Adam was deceived in the New Testament. And that is why men are given the obligation of headship, leadership in the home and in the church, because Adam failed at that point. Eve had taken the charge. She believed the serpent, probably out of pride, out of putting herself first. And then Adam's problem was a submission to something where he should have said, smack Satan out of there, knock that fruit out, that he should have taken the initiative there, but did not. And then Eve gave to him. So to say that was pride, I tend to think that it was perhaps once he saw Eve doing it, he's like, one, well, if she's doing it, maybe I'll do it too. But secondly, if she's going to die, I may as well die too. So you have this misplaced love. But it's a major point, but a minor point. But his point is pride is what got us kicked out of the garden, and I think that is definitely a part of it. He said, pride sits in all our hearts by nature. We are born proud. Pride makes us rest content with ourselves, to think we're good enough as we are. Keep us from taking advice, refuse the gospel of Christ, turn everyone to his own way, but pride never reigns anywhere so powerfully as in the heart of a young man. So found that interesting that he's painting this broad brush, because I would think also a problem, not just pride, would be the opposite, which would be what we used to call it an inferiority complex, a humility that's beyond what actual humility is. But so you follow me? Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Because some men are like, but even that can be a form of pride, because I'm making everything so much about me that I don't rise to the standard. The other way to do it is I make everything about me and I am the standard. So it's just how do you deal with your self-importance? What do you think of that thought? I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't even know what I would add to that. I mean, because it is, I mean, it comes back to what standard you're, how are you giving yourself value based on what standard? Are you hitting the mark? Are you missing the mark? And it should be easy, right? On paper, it should be easy because we know our standard is Christ,
Mm-hmm.
right? Humble ourselves, for he humbled himself. He was rich and became poor. That's our standard. So on paper, it's easy, but I mean, I still find myself wrestling with these things, you know. Um,
Well, if it is
yeah,
an aspect of the sin nature, we'll probably wrestle with it until we no longer have a sin nature. We're glorified in heaven. That's funny. When we're finally glorified, we won't have that pride. That's counterintuitive. And thought of
right.
that. We're glorifying ourselves now, but we haven't yet been glorified. The Bible actually says, "Humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and at the proper time, He will exalt you." But even when Christ's talking of His exaltation, it's to the glory of God the Father. So maybe it is that true excellence points elsewhere. And so God can point nowhere higher than himself, but the Father glorifies the Son glorifies the Father, and the Spirit catches us up into all that. And that's how God glorifies himself. Well, God glorified himself by the humiliation, by Christ humiliating himself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's my free thoughts. All right, you
That's
want to hit
good.
the next paragraph?
Where do we stop? How common?
How common. Now, here's what before you read it, this is the word I have next to it with an exclamation point. Boomer. So that's what.
What, for this whole
Yeah, I was just
paragraph?
after I read it, I was like, that's
Okay.
people, young people. Say boomer. I'm not a boomer. I'm an Xer. I'm right on the edge, but I'm feeling it. Go ahead.
How common is it to see young men with big heads, high-minded, and impatient of any counsel? How often they are rude and uncourteous to all around them, thinking they are not valued and honored as they deserve. How often will they
No,
stop
no,
to
no.
listen
How
to a
often will they
hint from an
not stop?
Yeah, how often will they not,
Yeah.
very important word, not stop to listen to a hint from an older person? They think that they know everything. They are full of conceit of their own wisdom. They think elderly people, and especially their relatives, are
Especially their
stupid and dull and
relatives. I like
slow. They want no teaching or instruction themselves. They understand all things. It almost makes them angry to be
I like
spoken
stop a
to.
second.
Like,
I just note that it almost makes them angry to be spoken to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, like young horses, they cannot bear the least control. They must be independent and have their own way. They seem to think, like those whom Job mentioned, you are all the people and wisdom will die
You are the
with you.
people, and wisdom will die with you. And all this is pride, he says. Yeah.
All is
You
pride.
said before we got to this chapter that you really liked this chapter. And is this
Yeah, well, I think yeah, I mean, I think there's not a soul on earth that cannot relate to
mm,
this. I think we all, especially in like those preteen years, thought of ourselves far wiser than we were. You know, your parents don't know all this. They weren't raised in this time. Yada yada yada. The list goes on.
and
You
there's
know,
so much truth in that. I mean, that's the issue. I was reading something the other day, and it was something to the effect of when I was younger, I was the one that figured out how to program the VCR. I was the one that
right?
figured out how to hook the
Yeah.
computer up to the monitor. I was the one that loaded the 15 discs of Word Perfect onto the computer. I was the one that could do
Yeah.
DOS programming. And now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, how do you get the Bluetooth thing to work? What's it? And Sophia got here, there. I was like, yeah, but
Right.
show me how to do it. But the issue with that is, you've have focused on this technology way too much because you don't have anything else to do. All I had to do all day was figure out how to work the VCR. My dad was like at work. So, don't. So I think sometimes young people, myself included, with that kind of thing, you can see certain things, well, better than other people, like technology. And it makes you think you have a higher level of intelligence or something because I know how to work these things and you don't. When the reason you know how to play this video game is so well is because you're able to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and other people have work or parents that care.
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing when I was reading this chapter, I was okay. So yeah, because I'm 100% with you. There were things that even this generation, like the kids are growing up, they can do certain things electronically that I can't do now, right? So in their eyes, they're wiser, and that's kind of what you're talking about. But I think we started seeing some of that in the post industrial revolution, postmodern culture. you know, we're wise because of A, B, and
Mm.
C when we've lost. My mind always goes back to the Pilgrim's Progress, right? You see it all in there, right? Vainglory, worldliness, So yeah, maybe in a vain way we're wise in these things, but we've lost the wisdom where it really counts.
Well, and that's interesting. You kind of take it a different. It's not just intergenerationally between us and maybe the three or four generations that currently exist. You're going back 100, 200, 300,000 years ago. We think because we have all this technology, we're wiser than those who have come before. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Be careful.
And Christian hearing undoubtedly at this moment would go back to we no longer read good
Hmm.
stories, right? We're too entangled in this life of superficial luxury, materialism, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think there's truth to
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right. So the next one is Rehoboam. So Rehoboam, Jeroboam. There was a David, then there's Solomon. Solomon is followed by Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and Rehoboam is the guy that um, becomes king and listens to his young advisors rather than his godly elders in this. Rehoboam was such a person who despised the counsel of the old experienced men who stood before his father and listened to the advice of the young men of his own generation. He lived to reap the consequences of his folly. There were many like him. And that is a good example of that in the Bible. The prodigal son in the parable was also such a person who needed to have his share of the inheritance so he could set himself up in the lifestyle that he desired. He could not submit to live quietly under his father's roof, but would go into a far country and be his own master. Like the little child that will leave its mother's hand and walk alone, he soon feels the sting for his folly. He became wiser when he had to eat husks with the swine, but there are many like him. Speaks for itself. You want to read the next one?
It
Right?
does. Yep, yep. Young men, I beseech you earnestly, beware of pride. Two things are said to be very rare sights in the world. One is a young man that is humble, and the other is an old man that is content. I fear that this is only too
Yeah,
true.
that's good. Two things that are rare. A young man that's humble. It's like, I think the old man would go, yep, yep. And another is an old man that is content. That's interesting. Why do you think he
Yeah.
throws that in?
Well, he tied them
Mm-hmm.
together because I think my guess would be he's saying the average man later in life has not dealt with his pride to this
Mm,
point, so he's constantly living with contentment, would be my guess.
sounds good. Do not. Oh,
I think I see it too. I mean, when I'm treating this populace, there's a lot of very, I mean, you can tell they lack contentment. They're angry. Life hasn't gone the way they want. I mean, can a lot of that be traced back to pride? Um, Inability to listen, to learn, to submit to authority. I think it probably is common in older populace.
well,
What do
you
you
said
think?
whenever I'm treating this populace, people who don't know you,
Yeah, like it.
what do you mean treating? What are you doing?
Correct. Yeah, in the
You're
hospital
right. So
setting.
you're a
I
respiratory
deal with
therapist. People who
yeah,
can't breathe don't want to listen to you about how to breathe. Is that what you're saying?
that's true.
That's a great
You're
example.
yeah, yeah. Don't put down those Winstons.
Man,
Whatever
I've
you
seen.
do,
Uh,
you've been told for 40
mhm.
years.
Oh, I've made it thus
But
far. It's
yeah.
made it. I don't know. I've seen people in the hospital
Anyways,
move their oxygen and sit there. I was like, really? Okay. But it's just an example for how we are with our own stuff, killing us
yeah.
slowly and we just don't know it. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you see it. Where's the next paragraph?
Do not be proud of your own abilities, your own strength, your own knowledge, your own appearance, your own cleverness. Do not be proud of yourself and your endowments of any kind. It all comes from not knowing yourself and the world. The older you grow and the more you see, the less reason you will find for being proud. Ignorance and inexperience are the pedestal of pride. Once the pedestal is removed, pride will soon come
Hmm.
down.
All right. Well, I've seen this with the martial arts stuff. I think any sport it would work. You have a group of kids or adults, whoever, in a little small in your school, in your on your team, and there's a couple people who are just like so much better than all these other people. And they don't realize it's like all those other people are subpar, and so are you. You're just. I think I heard Kevin DeYoung talk about he was on some kind of a race team or something in college, and he raced in that, but he was in the elite level, but he was the slowest of the elite. So he's like,
Yeah.
I was in there, but I was the slowest of them. So what I would see is people that would compete at a local level and do well, then go on a national level and have their eyes open to like, man, you don't know what's out there. And then they get humbled and then they're able to grow. And I've seen other guys come in the martial arts setting. It's like, you can't teach them anything because they already know everything. But I always said, you get a kid that comes in with their dad, their kind of dad's like, well, I'm sorry. He doesn't know, he can't do jumping jacks or anything. And I'm thinking, he'll be mine forever. Because you just
Yeah.
show them how to do something else and they're like, but you can't teach somebody who thinks it's us. You have to empty your cup so somebody else can put more in it. So yeah, you need to, a lot of pride comes from a lack of understanding of what's out there in the world and experience. Anything to add?
No, let's continue.
Right? Remember how often Scripture sets before us the excellence of a humble spirit. How strongly we are warned, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought. Romans 12:3. How plainly we are told, the man who thinks he knows something does not yet know as he ought to know. 1 Corinthians 8:2. How strict is the command, clothe yourselves with humility. Colossians 3:12. And again, clothe yourselves with humility. 1 Peter 5:5. This is the garment of which many seem not to have, such as a rag. Humility. Read the next one. Go ahead.
Think of the great example of our Lord Jesus Christ leaves us in this respect. He washed the feet of his disciples, saying, you should do as I have done for you. It is written, though he is rich, yet for your sakes he became poor. 2 Corinthians 8:9. And again, he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself. Philippians 2:7-8. Surely to be proud is to be more like the devil and fallen Adam than like Christ.
Burn.
There's another section and there's another verse in, I believe it's either Philippians 1:20 or I think it's 1:20, but Paul says, I believe it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ not only to believe in him, but to suffer for his sake. And so it's almost like from the beginning, he's setting up this model of, hey, listen, we got to you got to be broke down first, right? You're going to have some hardships. We got to lose our pride, um, which I've always found interesting. Obviously the context there was, the church was under heavy persecution, but I think we can relate to that verse in particular as well. It is a grace of God that he break down our pride. And does that come with tough circumstances? Well, it depends on how prideful you are, but a lot of us are pretty darn prideful in our younger age and had to be brought down pretty hard, which I, for one, was very thankful for that grace.
Yeah, so I had a thought. It was well, if it went away, it must not have been that important. But
Glad I could stoke
yeah,
that
yeah, well,
amazing
no,
thought in
because
your
you
mind.
said, I wanted to keep listening because this is why I interrupt people, because if I don't, I'll forget. All right, so what's the next? Where's the next
think,
paragraph where I can get
think of
close?
the
I
wisest.
think of the wisest man that ever lived. I mean, Solomon. See how he speaks of himself as a little child, as one who does not know how to carry out his duties or manage for himself. 1 Kings 3:7. That was a very different spirit from his brother Absalom's, who thought himself equal to anything. And he quotes If only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or case would come to me and would see that he gets justice. 2 Samuel 15:4. That was a very different spirit from his brother Adonijah's, who, quote, exalted himself, saying, I will be king. 1 Kings 1:5. Humility was the beginning of Solomon's wisdom. He writes it down as his own experience. Quote, Proverbs 26:12. Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. So yeah, that's interesting too, because I always think, well, Solomon asked for wisdom, but you kind of see a lot of pride and some sins that he has. But he what I always like about Solomon, it's like very wise, but doesn't always follow his own wisdom.
Yeah.
And so you can be extremely wise and still sin because you have sin nature. And that was my thought earlier. You were talking about pride, and it was um yeah, your natural bent is towards sin, and so pride is the father of all sin. It's down at the root of all these sins. And so to be humbled that's what it is, the theology of suffering. Take up your cross and follow me. You're killing the old man. That's the point. And that doesn't change until the second coming of Christ. I mean, that's going to be the situation of the church. There'll be times when we are in times of, be cautious when you're in times of plenty, because you might sin and say, my own hands have brought me this. Or be cautious in times of persecution, because you might think God has abandoned me. So Paul says, I've learned the secret to all things. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then everybody likes to use that verse. I can do anything. Use it
Right.
to feed your pride. It's like, okay, cool. Good. Any other thoughts?
I don't believe so.
Next one, young men. Is this the last paragraph?
Last one.
Oh, okay. Young men, take to heart the scriptures just quoted. Do not be too confident in your own judgment. Stop being so sure that you are always right and others wrong. Don't trust your own opinion when you find it contrary to that of older men, and especially to that of your own parents. Age gives experience. I'm going to stop there a second so I don't forget. I remember hearing somewhere one time somebody had said, your parents have been 12 before, or your parents have been 18, but you've never been 50, or you've never been 30. So they know more what it's like to be your age, but you have no idea what it's like to continue for another 20 years. So you get to listen to experience. And I know sometimes we ask the question, if you could say anything to your old self, if you could go back and say something, what would you say? And it's like, well, you know what? I wouldn't have listened to it any more than I listened to my parents, who were coming from their past into my present. It's like, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. If you think that you would listen to advice from yourself, then listen to advice from people that you know to love you and care about you and seem to be fairly godly people. Um, so age gives experience and therefore deserves respect. It's a mark of Elihu's wisdom in the book of Job that Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were older than he. And afterwards he said, I am young in years and you are old. That is why that is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. Humility and silence are beautiful graces in young people. And I underlined that. Humility and silence are beautiful graces. And I'd say in anybody, but
Yeah.
particularly for young people, need to think of it. Humility and silence. Oh man, if I'd have been more humble and silent, if I could have kept my mouth closed. All right. Never be ashamed of being a learner. Jesus was one at 12 years. He was a learner at 12 years old. Scriptures tell us. When he was found in the temple, he was sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Luke 2:46. The wisest men would tell you they are always learners and are humbled to find, after all, how little they know. The great Sir Isaac Newton used to say that he felt himself no better than a little child who had picked up a few precious stones on the shore of the sea of knowledge. Young men, if you would be wise, if you would be happy, remember the warning I give you. Beware of pride. And that's that. Final thoughts?
Sir Isaac Newton. He's got it. You know, he's got it. It's not an easy thing to obtain. You know, I'll be. There's been times recently in prayer or meditation where I literally tell myself, you've got to shut up. Just shut up already. You know, stop always having something to say. Um, I would imagine that's a really good place to end up. You know, and I think it does come back to we all have a race to run. A lot of times our races look you know, they're different. They're not always really similar, but um, we have to keep running that race, hand to the plow, gaining experience, wisdom. Um, One of the more difficult things in the Christian life, I think, is we don't reflect enough on maybe where we were, you know? So if I look back 15 years, it's like, man, you can really see God working. But in everyday moments of life, it's like, man, I'm still struggling with pride, still losing my temper, you know, all these things. Um, but we just got to keep moving forward, trusting in God's graces. And do you agree? I mean, this chapter is very relatable
Oh
to,
yeah, it's really
to
good
anyone.
because it doesn't just point the finger at younger people. It continues to point them forward. I had a saying. I don't think it's from the Bible. It says, "What is it? It's better to remain silent and to be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt." So I've always liked that. It's like, you're worried about how you're going to sound. Well, it's better just to be worried. And some of the people I know and respect the most are just good listeners. And I mean, there's sometimes in a session meeting or a deacon's meeting or something, I'll look and I'll like, how do you not say anything? And then they'll say something wise. I was like, okay, that's,
Yeah,
it's probably the pastor's greatest struggle is, you're a speaker, but you got to learn how to be quiet. Listen, it can all become about you very quickly.
yeah.
If you don't learn to listen. So yeah, so the next one is another danger to young men is the love of pleasure.
Mm.
So this makes me think of Pinocchio. So let's go some lessons to learn. All right, well, good. Well, thank you. And
Yeah, thank you.
you said you have 2 yards to mow today.
Goes.
Wow,
Yep,
it's hot out there.
it will
All
be.
right. So you're pushing.
Negative.
See
But it'll
there.
still be hot. It'll still be hot.
It'll be hot regardless of it. All right. All right. Well, God bless you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. And I
You betcha.
will see you soon. Bye.
Yeah, maybe tonight. Maybe tonight. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Look forward to it.